Georgetown-Scott County Planning Commission to order for our May 15th, 2025 meeting. First item of business is approval of April invoices.
So moved.
A motion by Mr. Jesse,
Second.
second by Mr. Green. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Approval of the April 10th minutes. Is there any changes or additions that we need to make to last month's minutes? Hearing none, I'll take approval for the minutes of last month.
I move.
Mr. Stone,
Second.
all right, we have a motion and a second for approval of last month's meeting. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Approval of the May agenda. Mr. Stone? All right. And a second.
Begging tonight, aren't you?
I'll second it. There you go.
They're trying you, Charlie.
I think so.
It's a test.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Staff, is there any items for postponement or withdrawal?
Yes, there are two items, one of which we made you aware of at the workshop, which is the second item, 2025-13. The other one is the Bryant property application is a newly identified postponement due to failure to comply with the notification policy requirements. Just an item of clarification for you guys, can you drop your mics down and make sure the light is on when you're talking? But yes, those are the two postponements we have and no withdrawals at this time.
Okay.
Excuse me, you said Brian, who's the other one?
The Legacy Run project, it's the item G under new business.
It was postponed Monday.
Yes.
We talked about the money.
Okay,
B,
items for consent.
G and B.
Yes, items B through E are up for consent. Do not observe item B on the screen, that one's been postponed.
Is an item A eligible? You've got it listed.
I mean, on this screen, yes, I'm talking about on the agenda
Oh, okay.
itself, items B through E.
Gotcha.
But on the screen, items A and then C.
C, D, and E. All right.
Correct, yes.
I would like to hear more about the D property.
Okay.
I want to hear that one.
Yeah, all right. So the first item, FSP 2025-07, is the Duncan property, final subdivision plat to subdivide 1 5-acre tract from 154-acre parent tract, leaving 149-acre remaining at 119 Drake Lane. So like I said, we heard that the other night. Is there any other questions for the staff or the owner? The owners are here.
Do you need to make a motion to accept it?
Yes, I do need a motion to accept.
I make a motion that we accept item FSP-2025-07.
Okay, I have a motion
Second.
and a second. And so the reason this is listed as Drake Lane is because it will become part of Drake Lane. It's not Drake Lane now. Is that safe to assume? Okay, all right. Mr. Jesse?
Yes.
Ms. Canfield?
Yes.
Mr. Best not here. Mr. Stone?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Ms. Adair?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. If you will come see Mr. Perkins up here, he'll have some papers for you to sign, and you'll be official, Mr. Duncan. Item B has been postponed. The next item would be item C, PDP 2025-09, Country Boy Highview. It's the preliminary development plan for repurposing of 1,597 square foot building with 5,863 square feet of associated parking at 2325 Cincinnati Pike.
6325. Is that what you said?
6325.
Yeah, okay.
Did I miss?
I took it that way. That's okay. Just want to make sure you're right.
Yeah. Are there any questions from the staff or the owners concerning this piece of property?
I'll make a motion to pass
All right, the motion by Mr. Jesse,
item PDP 2025-09 for approval, yes.
all right?
Second.
All right, Mr. Green,
Yes.
Ms. Adair,
Yes.
Mr. Stone,
Yes.
Mr. Jesse,
Yes.
Ms. Canfield,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes.
Okay.
If you'll come see Mr. Perkins here. And the next one is the one that Mr. Jesse has some questions about. PDP 2025-10, Lemons Mill shipping containers, a preliminary development plan for the repurposing of 5.283 acre lot for storage and distribution of shipping containers, excuse me, located at 793A Lemons Mill Road.
We had talked about I just one question about the height of these containers, how many there's going to be stacked. You said it was going to be limited to 2, is that what? I just wanted any further clarification on that.
The applicant has indicated to be 2 containers tall by both this application as well as their conditional use permit, which was approved this past session of the Georgetown Board of Adjustment. I'd be glad to give you the full presentation if you like, or any representation here for the applicant. I'm sure would be glad to answer questions as well.
The actual motion that the Board of Adjustment was limited to 2 stacked.
So that is what
So,
it's.
yeah, that's part of the approval, so they're not approved to do anything else. That's part of the conditional use permit, so we couldn't even up that.
So
Because
what
it's
would,
not there.
so what would happen, Charlie, if they decided they wanted to go higher? They'd have to come back and get permission?
They'd have to come back and they'd have to get, number one, an amendment to their conditional use permit. If that were amended to be, say, 3, then they'd have to come back and at least discuss with staff whether or not they needed to amend their development plan.
And then what would happen if they became in violation of what was agreed to?
Then that would be brought to the Board of Adjustment, and they'd either have to basically correct it and stop it, or they could jerk the permit, which means they'd have to clear the whole thing out.
Okay, that was my question. I want to make sure
Yeah.
for the public.
Amazingly, conditional use permits are probably the best place where we have teeth in all of our system.
Okay.
Yeah, everywhere else, there's all kinds of grays and whatnot, but conditional use permits, we actually have teeth.
Okay, thank you.
If I may, to that point, while that language is reflected in the conditional use permit, and as Mr. Shirley's pointed out, that was the language of their application. For sake of consistency between the Board of Adjustment and the Planning Commission, if the Planning Commission wished to include a condition for the development plan, there's nothing prohibiting them from
No.
doing that.
No.
Well, I would like for us to do that, just to make sure.
Does that require a full presentation?
So we
Thank
could
you.
we could put a motion to approve with the condition.
Yeah, just simply mirroring the condition that's already in the CUP. That way, we're not actually changing it any.
Yeah, that's
I'm
fine.
not stepping on their toes either.
Okay, it's consistent.
Okay. I'll make that a motion. I don't know how you want me to word that, but yes.
In effect, it would just be a motion to
Approve.
approve with an additional condition, that would be your language, so.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion to approve item PDP 205-10 with the amendment that it can be no taller than 2 stacked high.
It's okay. We'll share.
So I have a motion by Mr. Jesse and a second by Ms. Adair. Did you have?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. If you would state your name,
Willis Baskin.
okay?
We have the property in the back, 793B, right behind the container. What we are concerned with is the semi-truck loading and turnaround area that they have. It's right in front of where we're going to end up putting a 20-foot gate that's the ingress and egress to our property.
Uh-huh.
And also, they've got it all the way to the edge of the toe of the slope, which is exactly the roadway going in and out. When they subdivided this property in 1988, Tom Price did.
Mr.
They
Bassett,
put-
excuse me just a second. Elise, do we have a map of that property we could put on?
Those country roads. You guys go. I mean, this is the aerial map here, is this what you're referencing?
I've got a overlay of
Okay,
a map and everything.
so your property has the building, if you look back up one,
Sorry.
right there. Your property is behind that red line?
Right here, yeah.
Okay,
Right here.
all right. And where's the gate?
Right here is the roadway.
All right.
Existing. We're right here, they've got a turnaround area that goes all the way to the edge of grass, over here and all the way out. This is their loading and turnaround area, and it's right at the entrance of the existing road. It's been there from 1988, 37 years.
Okay.
And that's our only, we had some earlier discussions, but nothing ever, we never got any further with it. And the other thing that, when they did this in '88, they put a 50-foot easement, ingress and ingress easement from the property line over this way in. But when you measure that out, even though the roadway, we've got a prescription easement since 1988, because it's been going in and out like this and everybody's been happy. We only got 11 feet in the back.
At the
And-
gate?
At the gate.
Because of the grass area over next to the, where you're talking.
Well,
It's
by,
not road,
if
it's not road.
we, yeah, if we measure from the fence
Yeah, I'm
50
with you.
foot,
Yeah.
we got 11 foot from the grass.
Yeah.
And it angles this way
And
towards
the
the
other
front.
39 feet is the grass to the side.
But all we're asking is a semi-truck and loading turnaround area, if they just move it over 30 foot from the toe slope, the edge of pavement, it's always been there, just move it over 30 foot, and give us 30 foot all the way in and out. Just, and everybody's using that right now anyway.
They do have the space to be able to do that.
Absolutely, yes, sir.
May I address
Please.
there are some items in there that I think.
Okay.
If I may, Mr. Bash.
Yes, sir.
So, as part of this development plan, let me understand, are you speaking of this area down here?
Yes.
Okay, so I will say that the layout as proposed, while in general, the development plan meets all of our standards and whatnot, there is a condition in place that all of these containers must be set back as such a building would be. That's a condition of outdoor storage. Mr. Bastion, to your point, they are currently showing the containers all the way to the property line. By the ordinance and the requirements, that's inappropriate. There is a condition of approval in there, and it is based on the standards of outdoor storage and the placement thereof, that they will have to pull these containers back beyond the setback line of the property's edge. Now, impervious surface, vehicle use area is not beholden. It would just be the containers. They're treated as if they were a structure. I don't know if that helps your concerns. But that will be, this section here, all of the orange shaded section is proposed storage area. So all of that would have to be brought within the setback lines before their final approval for the development.
I don't know what the rule is here, but I don't have a problem up to the property line. I mean, it's their property, but over here, we do have a problem because nobody can define loading and turnaround. How long? What if they get up there, I'm gonna exaggerate, a couple hours? What, are we not supposed to be able to get in the property if we put a gate there? We can't put a gate over here, it doesn't match the road. Does that make sense? I mean,
Yes, sir. Yeah. So your concern is getting into your property.
That's it. That's all.
Yeah.
I want to be a good neighbor. We just want to get to the building in the back.
Right.
That's it.
The access easement he is referencing is not only recorded on pre-existing plats, but also noted on the development plan with a plat reference. It does exist on his development plan.
He's saying,
Goes from the property line to right here, we have 10 feet. What I can do then is I can come up through here and I'll plow up this all the way through there and I'll make it through the utilities and all.
Easements are a civil citizen-to-citizen thing, but we do note them on recorded documents. Mr. Perkins and Holden, if you have anything else to add in that regard.
If that's the recorded easement, if a plan doesn't work, we can still make adjustments to it. But we do in fact generally recognize the easement that exists. But if that doesn't work with the plan, and this doesn't sound like it's working, then we can't make adjustments to that. In effect, we can require more than what just they actually got for an easement.
But we believe we have a prescription easement since '88 for 37 years. Everybody's been using that road that way unobstructed.
And I understand that, and since you use the prescriptive term, that may be quite antsy, because only courts can decide, yes, you really do.
I realize that. I don't want to do
We
that.
can't do that, but we can make the plan so that the property adjacent as well as the applicant itself is usable. Even though a formal easement might be only give you 11 feet, we can obviously do better than that if that's what it takes to make the plan work.
It's designated on the development plan as 50.
On this drawing right here, it actually has the turnaround area over in the entrance. Is that right?
Well,
Does that make sense? You see that over there?
it does, but again, this is just a repurposing of what exists. It's not any addition, maybe improving the impervious area. The applicant and the representation, I believe, are here as well. May speak to more than that. The way staff understands it, and it's been presented in this case as well as part of adjustment, is that nothing necessarily will change here. It's just reuse of the existing impervious surface. There's no structures being put up.
Well-
If it would help the commission, I'd be glad to give the full presentation.
well, I think if we could, you say the developer, the owner's here?
I think we just got the one issue.
Okay, if we could get their interpretation of the easement, that may,
Because I know they're not gonna park anything there, but I understand what he's saying.
You got to be able to get into the property.
Yeah.
yeah.
Define how long is unloaded. Well, nobody wants anything unloaded in front of their driveway going to their house.
Yeah.
I mean, unload it over to the side. That's all I'm asking, move it back this way. And we had spoken about that.
Well, I'm Brian Ward, Palmer Engineering, and I'm representing the applicant and the landowner. There's two things that is being discussed here. Number one is this 5-foot encroachment of this turnaround / loading area into the existing 50-foot easement. The owner's perfectly fine with pulling that back and coincide with the 50-foot access easement that's in place. That's no problem whatsoever.
Okay.
However, I think what Mr. Campbell's trying to say, just to clarify, is if you look at his property line here, that access easement 50 foot over only allows him 11 to 15 foot of paved area. If you go back to the aerial, the majority of that access easement is in grass. That's what he's trying to say.
Yes.
So, but yeah, the applicant is perfectly willing to pull back to the 50-foot access easement and honor any easements and things on the plat and whatever needs to happen there.
Is that all you were looking
No,
for?
that doesn't give us anything, it gives us 11 feet.
Right.
Yes.
We don't, what we're saying is the ingress and egress, and I understand, I mean, the judge may have to decide if it's prescription easement, he'll have to say, yes, he's right, put it on there. I don't wanna do that, but we're only getting 11 feet, we're getting nothing. You can't even drive a truck through there.
Mr. Campbell's asking for an additional 19 to 20 feet of additional easement to the 50 feet, making a 70-foot wide easement to his property on the applicant and owner's property is what he's asking for. He's asking for an additional 15 to 20
What we're
feet.
doing is we're asking for what has always been there, the existing roadway. Everybody uses it now.
And-
No more, no less.
Is the existing roadway in that 50 foot?
A portion of it.
portion of
A
it.
portion of it.
11.
So when they built it in '88 and they put that on the, when they split the properties up, it doesn't match what was there. It's partly in the grass. My worries are, 2 years from now, I don't think they'll own the property that long, it's gonna be sold. I don't know who's gonna get it. Do I have to reinvent the wheel? And what if they come in and say, well, we own all the way here, we're gonna put a fence, I gotta get the whole ram out, and take out half that slide all the way down through there, just to get into the property. And then somebody said, well, that's a little far-fetched. Well, I don't know, I can't take that chance. All we wanna do is use the road, it's always been there, just go to the back and come out. That's it. And that doesn't help us going over to the existing, right, the existing easement. All he's doing is giving us 11 foot. He's moving this line, the way you have the other drawing on here, he's moving from right here over 11 foot. That's it.
No, I'm moving from right here, go back to that one, please.
He wants the
One
other
more.
one.
I'm moving from right here, that 50-foot access easement is right here,
Right,
okay? And what he's wanting to move it over here,
existing road.
where the pavement is. The problem is the road doesn't align with the easement. So, half the road's in the easement, the other half the road.
And what they're doing is they've got it over to the edge of the grass, they're gonna move it over 11 foot to match the easement from day one.
But it's in
That
it,
gives us 11 foot.
and we're showing it as a turnaround and loading area, which, you know, and we're willing to, you know, I mean, that's where it's at. And the owner, one of the owners is here, there's several owners, and they're willing to meet and discuss it. It's just where there's several of them, they've not had a chance to all get together and talk with Mr. Campbell at this time, so.
Well, maybe the best thing for the commission to do tonight then is to continue this and let the two owners or two representatives get together and resolve it.
Or we could simply vote it down too.
Huh?
Or we simply could vote it down as
Well,
well.
there's no need to do that. We could just not hear it.
So-
Charlie, would that be more of a civil matter or the courts to
Well,
decide where that?
if it comes down to them suing each other, then yes, it would. I think since it's here though on a development plan, it's also our matter. I'm not so sure though that postponing it is what we need to do. This is a preliminary.
Yes.
We can add to that a condition that before the final, we have to deal with the back property's access and whether or not there's gonna be an adjustment made to that access. I mean, and I don't know, I'm certainly not a planner, I don't do plan review. But it does seem odd that we would end up with just 11 foot of pavement. I don't know what fix there might be there, but I don't think we're gonna end up with 11 foot of pavement regardless of whether that's the current right of way, you know, between the parties. Because that doesn't sound like it works and we don't do plans that don't work.
Yeah.
At least we try not to.
Okay.
So my thinking is approve this with an additional condition that says prior to final, it's got, that question's got to be addressed. If it's not addressed, they come back here and we make a final ruling on the right of way between them.
Okay. Mr. Jesse, can you add that to your motion that, although this is a preliminary development plan before we get the final, that,
No, because I would like to withdraw and vote, maybe not vote for this now, but understanding the situation. It's the opposite.
okay.
Thank you, guys.
So, Mr. Perkins?
Well, this obviously is not going to be a consent item, so I would suggest everybody sit down and we continue, because I think we still have at least one other consent, and then we just hear this one.
Okay.
I'm just gonna hold it here, but our final item on the consent agenda is the Penn Alley, leases for buildings 2 and 3.
So do we need to do anything with the motion that's hanging?
Oh, just to withdraw the motion, I
No,
think
he
he did,
did.
didn't
He did.
He did, yeah, yeah, so there's no motion on the floor.
Okay, all right. So the next consent item is PDP 2025-11, Penn Alley Townhomes, Building 2 and 3, a preliminary development plan for 2 townhome buildings, 11 total units, with parking located on Penn Alley. And like I said, we heard this the other day. Are there any additional questions?
I'll make a motion to approve it then. PDP-205-11.
I have a motion.
I'll second it.
I have a second by Ms. Adair. Mr. Jesse?
Yes.
Ms. Canfield?
Yes.
Mr. Stone?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Ms. Adair?
Yes.
And chair votes yes. All right, if someone representing that developer will see Mr. Perkins.
Sir, would you like, is this yours here? Yeah. And then, is this yours as well? Okay. Sure. Let me get these done.
All right, so this brings us back to the Lemons Mill shipping container.
Why not? Okay. So, we've already warmed this one up, but this is addressed as 793A Lemons Mill Road. It's just there in the curve as you go past, football field and whatnot towards the bypass. Again, this is a preliminary development plan for the repurposing of just over 5 acres of essentially impervious surface associated infrastructure. It is already zoned I-1. It's adjacent to some A1 and R2 properties, so we will get into the requirements thereof with that. Overall, staff is recommending approval. Again, this is the subject property in question. Just confirming that it is industrially zoned. As you'll see there to the west, it does adjoin a railroad bed, other industrially zoned properties to the south and east. An item of question is that it does adjoin residential property to the north. And there are requirements for when industrially developed properties adjoin residential. I'll get into that in just a moment. As we've seen before, this is the proposed site plan. The shaded areas in the light orange color are where the applicant proposes to store said containers. Denoted there by the red dashed lines are the building setbacks at which the proposed storage areas currently encroach. The applicant did not propose or request a variance or waiver from the requirements that are set forth by the conditional use permit for outdoor storage. As such, staff has included, I believe it's condition 13, that reiterates the fact that the storage areas must be withdrawn within the building setback lines. As this is not a requested variance, staff felt it appropriate to just add that as an item of condition of approval. To Mr. Mifflin's point and others earlier, that this will have to undergo a final development plan process. So by the next iteration of the plan, if this one is approved, we will require those changes. The purple dashed lines there are the proposed turnaround, loading, and offloading areas for the trucks and associated machinery, forklifts, whatnot, to operate within. Again, just to reiterate, there will be no permanent structures erected on this site. It is essentially a repurposing and reuse of what exists. There will be a temporary construction style office. I'm sure it's going to be shipping container style as well, placed on site, again, temporary. The applicant has stated that there'll be just one person on shift at any given time. Business hours are detailed here in just a moment. 6 a.m. to 4 p.m. on weekdays only. These containers are essentially utilized by large-scale retailers as inventory changes over, things of that nature. So they'll ship in, ship out, so to speak, as requested. The applicant has also indicated that private individuals may request to rent them for storage for own personal purposes. There will not be any on-site storage. The containers arrive and leave empty. So, and that's also been a condition of the conditional use permit, rather, which was issued by the Georgetown Board of Adjustment. And again, to Mr. Jesse's concerns and others, the containers will be stacked too high, again, as limited by the permit which has been issued thus far. Section 453 of our ordinance does list outdoor storage as a conditional use, which has been previously approved. With that does come standards that must be met, that the storage is incidental to the principal use of the property. Again, repurposing of the site for that. Storage shall not be visible from any right-of-way or adjacent area of different zone. I'll detail the landscaping and screening requirements for that in just a moment. And again, the screening utilized must be of a certain type to consist of an earthen mound, planting, fence, or walls. And also, as I've spoken to before, number 4 stating that the storage areas must satisfy minimum setback requirements of the zone as if they were a structure. That ensures proper screening, adjacency to other properties is not an encroachment or a hindrance or an eyesore to others. Also, the land use buffer ordinance does speak to the screening of outdoor storage. It must be screened by a solid wall or fence not less than 6 feet in height. So in addition to what our other requirements are, there will also have to be fenced-in areas of the impact. As stated before, the property does adjoin other industrial properties. However, there are no screening requirements for the property itself. The use before described does have requirements, but just the development itself. However, as it does adjoin residential property to the north, it will have some minimum requirements of a 10-foot wide landscape buffer to consist of trees and hedge and whatnot to achieve the opacity as required by the ordinance, to protect lines of sight from residentially zoned properties, adjoining roadways, etc. There is also some screening, again, along the vehicle use areas as they adjoin the right-of-way at Lemons Mill. The residential property there to the north will be beyond the screening as detailed here with the hedges and trees. All of the landscaping that is shown on the landscape sheet with this submittal does meet the intent and requirements of the ordinance. However, this sheet is not typically required until the final development plan. They have supplied it here just so that we're ahead of the game. And again, it does meet all the requirements as set forth by the ordinances. The applicant has also provided a line of sight diagram that details if you were on the roadway in a car on Lemons Mill looking towards the site, which is at a slightly different elevation from the roadway itself, exactly how the site would appear if you were to have the established screening. Again, staff in the ordinance does not intend for 10-foot tall trees to be placed in at time of development. However, as the screening and the trees mature, this is kind of a typical line of sight diagram you would expect to see as you came and went from the area. If you have any questions about that, I'm sure the engineers could explain it much better than myself.
Brett, would you just
Yes.
clarify whether that is illustrating a single stack or a double stack that the applicant is requesting?
This delineates the total height as proposed. If it differs, yes, this is the total height as proposed from the roadway with the associated screening as required by the ordinance.
It's going on the far right.
Yes.
So that's equivalent to too high.
Am I understanding that correctly?
It looks to me about, sure, that's 10 foot high. That appears to me to be a single stack.
Staff did not put the diagram together, so.
Okay.
Yeah. It was included on the development plan, so I clipped it and placed it. So if you have any further questions about that, the applicant or their counsel, I'm sure, could detail more. Again, also in addition to that, it has been identified that this site is within the Royal Spring Aquifer Recharge Area, and as such, subject to the jurisdiction and requirements of the Wellhead Protection Committee. There have been remediation items put in place, and again, the final development plan will also require a full stormwater remediation report. The Wellhead Committee has met and has given their blessing of sorts to this development, and they've also issued certain requirements that the applicant will be beholden to. Those are detailed in the development plan and will be carried over to the final development plan, and they will have to comply with those. Mr. Krebs, I hate to volunteer you, but if there's any questions regarding that, I'm sure he'd be glad to answer. To further those issues, all equipment that will be on site, if it's overnight and not in use, it will be put under canopies as installed by the applicant so as to prevent any runoff or anything of that nature during a rain event. I believe there's other containment issues to be placed along the perimeter. There will be gutters of sorts which also have oil water separator mechanisms in them, again to eliminate or mitigate any runoff issues or pollutants. Again, the final stormwater plan will detail all this through the final process. All in all, again, staff does recommend approval of the plan as it is. All of these conditions you see here are standard for all development plans in the preliminary phase. The second slide does detail some additional ones to include number 11 and 12. I believe Mr. Jesse has proposed out of the 13, however, the motion was withdrawn. So I believe the conditions stand currently. Again, all storage areas must be within the building setback lines, is number 11. And number 12, all requirements of the Royal Spring Aquifer Wellhead Protection Committee must be met and upheld.
Can we ask the gentleman a question too?
Absolutely.
Sir, can you tell me how many years you've had that property that you said you were using?
December.
December of this year?
Yes, sir, we just.
Thank you.
December.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, we haven't sworn in witnesses yet.
Yeah, if there's anyone that planned on speaking or has spoken, could you stand and Mr. Perkins is swearing you in. Sorry about that.
Do you swear affirm the statement you make tonight to be the truth, to the best of your information and belief?
Yes, sir.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Sorry.
I will say one thing, and I didn't want to bring this up tonight, but I'm going to anyway. We came up to an agreement. There's a water line that has to be put on this per fire marshal from the main road 300 foot back to put a fire hydrant in. Partners came to me and said that fire hydrant's because of your building in the back, not because of ours, because of yours. We'll buy all the materials for the water line. If you'll pay to put the water line in for us, we'll give you the 30 foot that you deserve. I called Miss Willett, and I said, because I've got burn permits from her and stuff, and I said, can I ask you a question? I said, is that fire because of me? She said, you're not on the development plan, Willis. I said, I know, but I'm hearing things. I just was trying to verify. She said, no, it's nothing to do with you. I have to, worst case scenario, not accept that any of those units are empty. And if out of 320, if 20 came back and had stuff in them, one accidentally had some flammable stuff in it, I have to be prepared to deal with that fire. That's what she told me. She said, Willis, it's nothing to do with you. If you look at development plan, you're not on there. It's just your property line. They don't show anything about you. So I had it if I'd agreed to lay the water line, but I don't feel like I should have to lay a water line at my expense to be able to get in and out of my property. That's
Okay.
where I am.
All right. Thank you. All right, we'll hear from the owners. You have anything else to?
I'm Matt Welch. I'm one of the property owners. There's 5 of us total. So Mr. Baston has done a lot of work for us and will continue to do a lot of work for us. So this is just something that we need to work out together. We're not opposed to meeting Mr. Baston and working this out. I'm one of the 5, so I need to collectively meet with the partners and figure out a reasonable solution. His comment on putting the water line in and the fire hydrant in to serve the property is accurate. Him and I did meet, and we did discuss that. In the TRC meeting that I was present for, Ms. Willett made a comment that she wanted the fire hydrant 2/3 of the way down the property, and her rationale, and maybe I misunderstood, was that there was a fire in Mr. Baston's building, and they had to pump water all the way from the road. So perhaps I made a false assumption. We have not met with Ms. Willett yet to resolve that. The fire hydrant is on our development plan, and we will be obligated to put it in. That's kind of where we are. There is, like you mentioned a few times, there is a 50-foot existing easement. Most of the easement, as Mr. Baston has pointed out, is up in the grass in the slope.
On the slope?
There may be other options rather than just us giving an additional 30 feet, and that's just something that we're going to have to work through.
So it sounds like to me that both parties need to sit down and do some discussion. You with the rest of your partners, Matt, and then.
Yeah, so
Mr. Renton.
partners are usually a good thing, and they are a good thing.
Yeah.
But with partners, you have different opinions.
Yeah.
And we have to all come together and figure
I'm
it out.
lucky I only have to talk to my wife.
And that's just where we are. We're not trying to be a bad neighbor. We're not trying to,
I'm not either.
we're not trying to out leverage Mr. Baston. It's just, it's
Yeah.
not as easy as just saying, here it is.
We just need to do some more talking.
That's all it is.
Yeah, exactly. Okay,
All I wanted was some time to do that before it got.
okay.
I don't think they're gonna be there forever, and I didn't wanna reinvent the problem for me later on, because we plan on owning this for a long time.
But up
But
to now,
you-
that's not been able to take place, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah. You have to correct me if I'm wrong, though, but
Matt's tried though, Matt's reached out to me, when he, like he said, he's got a whole tribe.
we have time between the preliminary and the final. Is that, am I?
That's what Mr. Perkins was saying, yeah. We can approve this as it is tonight
With that additional condition.
with
that
that
has to be
additional
addressed.
condition that easement is worked out. And so then when you come back for the final, it would be resolved.
Yeah, hopefully it will.
Yeah,
And if it's not, then they come back and then the commission resolves it.
got you. Okay.
I don't see why we can't resolve it somehow.
Does that sound fair enough to both of you there?
Matt's reasonable.
Okay.
If I may just clarify, the condition then would essentially look to, upon final development plan submission, include a document signed by both the owners of the property as well as the adjacent property owner, indicating that this issue has been resolved.
The easement is.
Yeah, well, that's what you'll look for. All I want to put on here is that issue will be resolved before it comes back for the final. Or, of course, the commission has to deal with it.
Mr. Perkins and the rest of the commission, does that mean, let's see, we had previously added item number 13 about the higher containers. Is that no longer in play?
No, that's-
Just for my-
No.
It's definitely still in
I
play.
would still like that there, yes.
Because I,
Well, it's just when he withdraws his motion.
So we can
Well,
make another-
Harold
It's
Dean's.
still here,
Let's go
and
bring
I'm
that back.
expecting it to be in a subsequent
So
motion.
this will be item
This
14.
will be 14.
because I do have an issue with the line of sight, with you got two churches there and you're coming out of Georgetown, you make that turn and all of a sudden you're looking at a bunch of storage containers. And that is gonna be an eyesore.
It is.
You know, you got Georgetown College right there with the football games and stuff, and
Yeah, can I bring up a point to that?
yes.
If you remember, that particular building very well may have been the worst, most blighted parcel in the county. Thanks to Mr. Baston, that building is no longer. It was dangerous, it was falling in, there was
They're-
drugs and everything else in there. We have removed the building, we're gonna be installing landscaping, and we're gonna drastically improve that parcel.
And I don't think the two containers stacked on top of each other are that much taller.
That's what I was gonna ask,
No,
what that
if I'm
building
not
was before.
mistaken,
Previous building.
inside there was probably 16 feet tall or something. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just 3 or 4 foot taller with the containers than what the
Yeah,
building was.
that wasn't a two-story building, but it was a large.
But it was,
Yeah.
no, because it had overhead cranes and stuff, you know.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we have to go back, it may be within a couple feet of the same.
Well, what do y'all think about that?
Kind of need some before pictures.
It
Yeah.
was-
I would, I think I'd make a request, the only thing I would request be easy, the trees that you plant, make something that would grow a little more height to it.
We were gonna plant some
That'd be simple.
arborvitaes or some fast-growing pines.
Something that would get, yeah.
Yes. They're not gonna be screening day one. I
No,
can
no,
promise
no,
you
no,
that.
no,
But,
no, no.
but they will
Expect
screen.
that.
Why can't they simply withdraw this and come back with all these things done?
There's no need to. Like Mr. Perkins said, we just put the amendments on there that have to be met
Yeah, it's just a preliminary too, I mean.
before the final development plan.
We can still make sure it was right when it comes back.
Yeah.
I'm happy to answer any concerns. I don't understand the point of withdrawing, but,
So you can come back and have it all buttoned up before we vote.
yeah.
Well, that's what
Willis
we're
and I are
do
gonna button up
before
our
the
issue.
Final development plan.
I'm thinking here, just real quick, those containers are 8 feet tall, correct?
Yes.
Yes, and I know that when I said it out loud. So that's 16 feet. You know, I've walked every inch of that building and I've breathed it, lived it for months. And I don't think there's much height difference if you want to. But you're right, you come around the corner, wow, that was like a big set of building blocks.
Yeah.
But the building, even with that awning in it, because it had that fake facade in the front, was taller than what's there now.
Yeah.
It was bad. It was falling in and it was contaminated and nobody wanted it.
We used to
It sat
farm-
there for years.
We used to farm that field, had tobacco right next to it. Well, I shall have a pipe down.
I'll, if there are no other questions, I will take a motion to approve the preliminary development plan.
Well, I would make a motion to approve the preliminary development plan with stipulation that before we get the final, that all the issues are put to bed about the entranceway for the egress to the neighbor there. They are satisfied between the two parties. And also that, what was the other thing we were gonna put on there?
Too high.
Yeah, that we wanted to just verify in our writing that they can only be stacked too high, as stated before.
I don't know that the guy with his forklift can stack them 3 high.
Right.
It's pretty scary, it's bad enough too.
I know going around
I watched
Louisville.
them today, I wouldn't want to
They
go
do
there.
it all the time.
Well, I go around the rail yard in Louisville's like 5 high.
Yeah, they do it all the
He-
time.
all the
he
time.
doesn't
But they
have-
got
he
big
doesn't have-
cranes.
His forklift's
No,
not
they're
that big.
Huh?
Those are
2 high is all you want.
Yes.
If I can read what I've already written down.
Yeah.
To make sure that it covers your motion. Number 13 would be containers shall not be stacked more than 2 high. Number 14, the easement to the back parcel to be resolved before final.
Yes, between the two parties, yes. Yep.
2 hours, 16 feet. All right. Not
Whichever comes
16
first.
foot. Yeah, I mean, somebody might be 1/16 foot to start with.
All right, I have a motion. I'll take Ms. Adair, do you still have the second?
Yes, I'll second.
All right. I have a motion and a second. Mr. Green,
Yes.
Ms. Adair,
Yes.
Mr. Stone,
Yes.
Mr. Jesse,
No.
Ms. Canfield,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. All right, Matt, or if you'll come see Charlie and. And the next item is PDP 2025-12, TMMK T2500 Maverick or T2500 Paint Reborn 2 project. This is a preliminary development plan for 628,200 square foot manufacturing building located at 1001 Cherry Blossom Way.
Thank you. This is, as Chairman Mifflin has stated, it is a preliminary development plan for a 628,000 square foot manufacturing building on the existing Toyota campus. It's an I-2 zone property, one of the 2 larger parcels of that respective zone, with several zones surrounding. I can rattle them all off, but they're also on the board. The total site acreage is 1,281 acres, and the area of impact is 32.67 acres, with direct access on the Outer Ring Road, which connects to Cherry Blossom, which has several state identifying numbers, and or Lexus Way. They have requested a variance to the building height from 75 feet, which is the I-2 maximum height set by the zone, to 116 feet with 20-foot stacks in addition to that. Staff does recommend approval of the request. This is the Toyota campus, in case you guys are new to the area. And the area in blue is the location where this is going to occur. I've zoomed in here. At the time of this aerial imagery taken in February of 2025, it is a vehicle parking lot. Toyota recently had announced a new investment in their facility that would necessitate a new building, and it was identified that this location would be their choice location, which would result in the relocation of their parking lot for the paint shop building. This is kind of their project here, and I've kind of broke it into the 3 parts that we're looking at. Site work 1, which is the realignment of Outer Ring Road, was a minor development plan that staff reviewed internally. It saw the relocation of that parking lot, as well as kind of bumping out Outer Ring Road to ring around this new building now. So outer ring road, and then also that parking relocation. Site work 2 is the project that we're looking at right now, the specific building that they're interested in building. And then site work 3 is just with the moving out of the parking lot to make room for the building. But the parking lot, we had to relocate some trailer storage, so it's all kind of maneuvering places to other places to allow for expansion of the facility. The building itself is rather large, and it does adhere to our building setback requirements. There's no violation of any lot coverage requirements, given the high volume of land in the area and the kind of, at times, compact, depending upon your perspective, development of the property. They are going to impose on the height requirement for the zone, so they have requested a variance for that. State statute, it lists specific findings that are required when we're reviewing variances, which I've included on the board. Before any variance is granted, the board must find that the granting of the variance will not adversely affect public health, safety, welfare, and would not alter the essential character of the general vicinity, will not cause hazard or nuisance to the public, and will not allow an unreasonable circumvention of the requirements of zoning regulations. In making the findings, the board shall consider 3 items, that the variance requests from special circumstances which do not apply generally to the land in the vicinity or the same zone. The strict application of the provisions of regulation would deprive applicant of reasonable use of land or create unnecessary hardship. Or item C, that circumstances are the result of actions of the applicant taken subsequent to the adoption of zoning regulations. And then if there's any willful violations found, the board has the discretion to withdraw with that finding being made as part of that. They have submitted several renderings as part of that, and I do apologize, our copy machine kind of killed those images, so I put them in our presentation, so we'll be able to kind of walk through this process. I'd like to first start with the south elevation plan that they've shown here. And sorry guys, your phones are kind of super roached right now, but this is the existing building here at this location, and then this is the proposed one. You can see that this grade is decreasing by 15 feet, where the building would be starting at that elevation and then going up from there, at which point they will be 83 feet in height if measured parallel to the existing building, and then they're asking for the additional 116 total for the new structure to put on the campus. They did also submit this lovely graphic, which again, everything's so roached. So sorry guys, I'll figure out what's wrong with the printer and we'll get a better picture copy for future stuff. This is some aerial imagery here kind of showing various views that they submitted as part of their project. When looking northeast at this I-75 southbound rest shelter, I've circled the location of the building there. So the top and all of these reference pictures will be the existing conditions and the bottom will be the proposed changes. So in that area, you can see some slight kind of peep of the new building there. When you're looking at the entrance to the rest area, this is the other location here. If you really squint at it, you can probably see it. It's a very light rendering. When you're looking at the overpass, this is what you'll be looking at. So looking southbound again. And then the final one being here, which is in the nearest rest area. The view from the building there. I will allow SSOE, who is the design firm, to kind of speak more to it. I just wanted to include it because unfortunately the pictures didn't make it. In their supplemental letter that was submitted, they stated that the additional height is required to facilitate advancements in automotive manufacturing and to leave sufficient space for those processes. The additional vertical space would allow for modernization of a lot of those technologies, increased efficiency, and ultimately, like, we do like to see a modernization. We like to use the least amount of space possible, really try to condense things down, and this additional height can facilitate that kind of condension of activities to a smaller area of impact. Staff does after considering the request and the existing campus layout and unique needs of the uses, that the requested variance satisfies the state statute requirement, and staff recommends in favor of granting the variance for that additional height as part of this request. Again, I've kind of already referenced the road realignment project. They're just using existing road systems. They're just using existing parking areas that are being relocated. There was no loss in the number of parking spaces. And per correspondence with the applicant's engineer, there would be no reduction in the parking areas, and there was sufficient parking on the campus to satisfy the needs of all staff. Landscape and land use buffers, there was really staff, after review of the location of the property, staff concluded that the proposed building would not impact existing perimeter landscaping. Again, with the relocation, they're just using existing spaces. Furthermore, because there are no VUA perimeter changes as part of this specific site work package, no vehicle use area perimeter landscaping nor interior landscaping would be required. We did thoroughly work with them to make sure that when they were doing the road realignment, all of the requirements of the landscape ordinance were met, and staff is satisfied that they have met the extent of that ordinance without requiring a variance for it, which is why I was able to go internal review for realignment. Furthermore, the location would not result in any changes in the tree canopy specifically as part of this. Again, there were no trees in the area, and they're going to have no more trees in the area with the building there, and so no tree canopy was changed. Staff did put a final note to require a photometric plan as part of this, just to ensure that no additional lighting that was part of this specific building would be noticed off-site. It is important to understand that the photometric plan is for this specific building, so if there's existing lighting issues, that may not address it, but if there are complaints, we can certainly work with the applicant to go forward as needed. And ultimately, staff does recommend in favor of the preliminary development plan with the building height variance as requested and 8 conditions of approval. First 4 are here, typical 4 we see. Next 4 are here. Photometric plan is condition 6. Condition 7 is fire department stuff, and condition 8 is working with their respective utility providers to make sure the site is serviced appropriately. If there are any questions for me, I can answer them now. Otherwise, I will hand it over to the applicant.
Just one for the general public. We talked about this, just want to make sure I am aware that Toyota did satisfy that safety-wise, there's not going to be a problem with the height of the building being able to, if the emergency did result in this building being that tall.
To my recollection, at technical review and in conversation with the fire department, they saw no issue for it, that they had ladder trucks that could address issues on it. Of course, what if all the ladder trucks are busy? I think there's a bigger issue to fry in that situation, but.
Yeah, as long as we do have, there is equipment to handle that tall building, which is what.
Yes, from my conversations with the fire department, and again, they may be able to speak, or the applicant or their engineer, they may be able to speak more to it. There was no issues identified when we did technical review.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Elise? All right, do the owners have any comments or?
Hello, my name is John Marsh. I'm from SSOE, the overall, and then Amy is the Toyota representative, and Stephanie is from Palmer, who's also assisting with the plans. Fire protection, there is a fully sprinklered building on it. The building itself is fully sprinkled, and then whatever apparatus is available to put out the fire. And there have been no issues from the fire department.
Okay.
We are proposing some electric vehicle spaces in the parking lot and in the smaller, that was part of the preliminary, or the site work 1 administrative. And the comment we got from the fire department was they would like us to add some hydrants to cover those EV parking spaces. So we've done that and added those in there. Elise had some comment about the views. Would you mind going back to the overall one with the different viewpoints there? So we picked worst case scenarios. Mostly you can't see the building from the freeway. The freeway is the closest view from the public. We picked over, the view 3 is from the overpass. View 1 and 4 are from the rest areas from the freeway. And if you go back to the profile view or the section view, that one. So the existing Team MK 2000 building, if you're at the rest area and you look across, I did this myself, like I'm walking around out there, you can see the stacks of the existing paint shop, and you can just see the existing roof. And probably in the fall or winter when the leaves are down, you could probably see a little bit more of it. But you're just seeing the top edge of the existing building. So you're gonna see that extra height from that area, from that view. But it's from the freeway, so we're asking for that variance. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you. John? Any other questions for representatives from Toyota or engineers? All right.
Hi, Polly Singer-Erdley. I'm a co-owner of 1929 Cincinnati Pike. It's farm been in the family for quite a long time. My dad had it and farmed cattle, and we have it for cattle as well now. Back in March, I received a notice from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers from Louisville, the Louisville office, and they had said that the project will affect the waters of Dry Run. Dry Run is near, has been mentioned in this. And it says the applicant requests authorization to fill jurisdictional streams and adjacent wetlands associated with the expansion of the TMMK facility and construction of associated infrastructure. The proposal would result in the discharge of fill material, resulting in the permanent loss of 687 linear feet of the intermittent stream, 118 linear feet of the perennial stream, and a 1.43 acre emergent wetland. Then down in it says compensatory mitigation to avoid the unavoidable functional loss to the aquatic environment. My concern, as well as a lot of other landowners around me, is that, if they're going to fill that in, will that affect our streams? Because being a cattle operation and farm, we need water. So, that is a big concern of ours. And do you all know what is going to happen with that? Is it going to be filled in? Is it going to?
I'd be glad to
Oh,
address
okay.
that.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
I'm Stephanie Blaine with Palmer Engineering. We did coordinate with the Army Corps and the Division of Water for impacts to waters of the U.S. The site stormwater, Palmer helped with the overall stormwater of the site, and we have analyzed all the runoff from the buildings that SSOE, the parking lots and the buildings SSOE has designed. And all that water is going to be going through a stormwater management system that is in compliance with the City of Georgetown regulations. So what that means is that we have analyzed it to review any changes to peak flows and anticipated base flows. So normally in these circumstances, the concern is an increase in peak flow. When you have additional runoff or additional impervious area, the water runs off instead of soaking into the ground. It can cause flash flood events and those sort of things. To mitigate that, Toyota has already constructed 2 very large basins that are in this area. One of those basins is not going to be modified. It was constructed back in about 2015, and it had accounted for future development in this area. So it was designed with the thought that there was going to be additional runoff coming. The other basin was constructed back when the plant was first built in the 80s, and that basin is going to be modified. And so the modification to that basin will take into account any additional impervious area that's running into that basin. We're creating a sediment forebay area, and this provides two different functions. Basically, one of those functions is it will help maintain water quality, in the fact that it will allow any sediment that's picked up, any trash or debris, to be able to settle out in an area before it gets into the main basin. And it also will provide additional storage. So that based on our calculations and the storms that are required in the Georgetown manual, the peak flows from not just right now, but from when before the site was constructed, will not be increased. That's why we're sort of involved in this project. We've looked at that for Toyota with all their upgrades to the facility. We've gone through and sort of modeled each one of their basins to try to make sure that there's no impacts to the surrounding stormwater and streams as a part of their upgrades. So the stormwater basin, this is an industrial site. So this is also controlled by a KPDS individual stormwater discharge permit. So that is something through the state that they have to test this water once a quarter for TSS, oil and grease, zinc, pH, and temperature. So once a quarter, there's a location out here before it crosses underneath the interstate that's tested for all of those pollutants. Those results are submitted to the Division of Water, and they review and respond if it's within the permit limits. These areas have historically not had any issues with meeting permit limits, and that is something that we're working through with them. To them, it's just a minor amendment to their permit because we are not changing the discharge location. There's a structure located there that has an oil separator in the bottom of it, and also has several different orifices to help control different storm events. So to address some of your concerns, I believe I looked it up, and your property is upstream of where this discharge is. All the comments we got back from any of the property owners were all upstream of where we're going to be discharging this property or this project. So the Toyota discharges are downstream of that.
Downstream.
You're downstream?
So where it is, like what?
Yeah, so I don't have a laser pointer.
Right behind you here.
Okay, can I do this one?
I'm just trying to figure out where it's gonna.
So the Toyota discharge will come through this, this is the point that comes into dry run.
Yeah.
In this location. I believe that the properties we got comments from were this property here,
Yep.
and then, yeah, going up there. I don't remember. So the portion of dry run, like this tributary will come into this location here. So for anything upstream of that, there is not really a way that this would impact any flow of any kind.
Where does that hit? Does that hit the subdivision or the school? Is that near there? Near Ann Mason and all that, or near the?
That's where it goes eventually.
Eventually, it'll go down.
Okay.
We actually did a model
Yeah.
at this location here, and it showed that because of the size of this drainage area, we could release this water that was added undetained and it not cause a change in the peak flow. Because of how much water in the entire community goes here, we sort of felt like it was the responsible thing to do for the community to analyze that at the location where it came over here. So it's a little bit too complicated. Sometimes I get in depth on stormwater stuff nobody cares about. But like a downstream analysis model that would have shown that even without that intentional intention, that it wouldn't cause an increase in peak flow. So that made us feel more, especially confident that we shouldn't be impacting anybody downstream.
Can I talk there?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, sir.
So where this farm that you talk about is downstream, and I hear what you're saying.
Excuse me,
You
could you give us your name and
Henry
address?
Graves, 1735 Cincinnati Road.
Thank you.
We're an historical farm, Betty Graves, Marvin Graves, so. But the point is, I hear what you're saying, and it's like I told Ben on the phone, when we get these hard rains, all of that stuff you just said, it comes right down that, washes out, cattle, water gaps, the garbage and the junk that's trees, and I don't know where we even had a TV show up. I guess it comes off the interstate or something. I don't know where it comes from, but other than that, though, you're destroying the wetland. and you didn't address that. And I know, I read the Army Corps of Engineer report, says you can buy wetland destruction credits somewhere in the U.S. to apply to satisfy destroying wetlands in Scott County.
Has to be in this water, in this sewer, or the watershed.
Which I thought was just bizarre. I didn't know that that was allowed, but at the end of the day, you're gonna destroy wetlands that you'll never get back. You're gonna fill in ditches and creeks. And when you get these rains, we're gonna get them again. I don't know if you've seen all the flooding that's happened. It comes right down that creek, and you can have all the basins in the world, and it still doesn't hold it. I mean, it doesn't hold it today. And you're expanding the footprint of that plant, and it's gonna run off more than it is currently today. I don't know what the percentage is, but it's a lot. And I'm not saying, I don't want to be anti-Toyota. We drive Toyotas. It's been a great for the community, but I don't know if there's any way you can mitigate that water runoff. That's all. And I think we're going to get water.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's the lack of water. It's just the.
Because which part of the channel are you seeing? Because if it's coming down the main portion of the channel, like this is a very large watershed above here. So some of that coming down is not even coming. Most of that coming down is not coming from Toyota.
Where did you say that was? I gotta get my bearing. I think this is our farm right here, so I think it's coming down that tributary and this tributary. And all the dry run feeds in right in here. But it's this, and it's part of this.
So yes, so there is streams and wetlands, designated waters of the U.S. that will be impacted by this. The Army Corps about 15 years ago stopped allowing for on-site mitigation, except in very extreme circumstances. Basically, they found that doing on-site mitigation was not highly successful, and that a lot of those areas were not as effective for improving water quality overall. So they have gone to a method where they essentially require you now to buy mitigation credits. And so those mitigation credits, there's separate credits for streams than there are for wetlands. So in this case, as was mentioned by Ms. Singer, that there are both stream impacts and wetland impacts. So Toyota's buying those actually from two separate banks. And it's in the range of about $750,000 in costs to offset those. All of those impacts have to be within the lower Kentucky Rivershed Basin, so it's not like we're going out and buying credits in Nevada. Those credits will be used to improve streams and wetlands or create new streams and wetlands within this watershed. There's been a lot of push to do it in the county. I don't know if Ben's gotten on that track or not, but I know that's a lot of things. If we could do it in this county or not, that would be great. Currently, the banks aren't set up like that. But that is something that is part of this. We recognize that the streams and wetlands will be removed. They were all very low quality streams and wetlands, and they had all been in areas that had been previously disturbed. So none of those were naturally occurring streams or wetlands. The biology and habitat assessments on those were all considered very poor, rated very poorly.
Can we see the ratings? Is it listed somewhere where the ratings are?
I mean, it was submitted to the Army Corps, so I think you have to request it through them. The areas that are being impacted, I can show you. Oh, did I have it right here? So that zoomed in one, that was perfect. So this area right here is one of the streams, which right now, a large portion of the entire industrial discharge for the entire site is going through this channel. And this is the existing basin where all the industrial discharge from the west side of the site goes. So there's streams and wetlands both in this corridor that are being impacted. They're considered U.S. bodies of water, even though they are constantly, have industrial stormwater going into them currently. The other area is this area right here. This entire channel was all regraded when the plant was first constructed. There are some wetland in this area here. That was a previous sediment basin that was never properly disposed of during a previous construction project that has now turned into a wetland. So all these issues, or all these items are all what's considered jurisdictional by the Army Corps. And those are what's going to be impacted. We've worked really hard with SSOE to try to not change the contributing drainage areas to each one of the remaining channels so that the impacts and the base flow don't change downstream.
Ma'am, I want to make sure we understand, so the single property is not affected because of where that farm is located, but the Graves property is that correct? Is that what I'm understanding?
I guess it looks like from, I guess he knows better than that. I guess if you flip to the larger property, I guess looking on the PDA, it looks like it was this entire parcel here. Is that not correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay. And so this portion of it is it would potentially be affected. The portion that is actually on dry run, that part, the confluence is below their property or on the southern portion of their property. The tributary to dry run would potentially impact them.
But then did you also say that a lot of this water is going to run off anyway from other parts coming downstream?
Yes, if you look at I don't have those calculations with me, but the drainage area to this point here, when we analyze the entire drainage area, even the amount of impervious area without any retention did not show an increase in peak flows. That doesn't mean that there's not an increase at certain points in time. We have tried to mitigate that as much as we can with stormwater detention. There are multiple orifices to try to catch different storm events. Looks like Mr. Krause wants to say something.
I enjoy listening to your talk. So
he knows far more about dry run than I do.
Yeah, we studied this for years. If everybody's seen the big board that sits in front of the fireplace in our office, that is part of the dry run watershed we studied. And I would be happy, we got a document on our website, I would be happy to cover all of that. The drainage that's coming down through your farm starts all the way at the top of the WMA. Drains all the way down. It drains through Triport, all that area. So that's where that TV came from. It could have been there. It could have been from the interstate. You also get all the drainage from the tip top of Harbor Village. All that is what is coming down on that main channel through yours. What is coming through that small channel where they're going to take out a little bit of the old ditches they're now classified as streams, that is not going to be changed because it's going through this big basin. They are controlling that water. They have got a large enough area that you're not going to see any change from this added based on all the modeling that was done. So flow, peak flows and all that will remain the same. They have proven that with their model. It is always changing all that overall. You were seeing a ton of flow from that overall watershed model. I'd be happy to show you in our office that as well. Our study is online. I've been doing this 27 years, and I have seen every classification that the Corps, I think, can give. We have walked out in a stream with flowing water, and they said, that is not our jurisdiction. We have looked at, we've looked at an empty field.
Right.
We've looked at an empty field with just a bow on it, and they said, we're going to claim jurisdiction all the way up to the top of that field. And so it goes back and forth. Stephanie, you've done it almost that long, I'd say. And you've probably seen the same thing. So it does vary. This is an opportunity now where they're going to claim money for this, and that money's going to have to be spent somewhere within the watershed so they can create a pristine stream. We do have, I don't know how much I can talk about it, but there is a bank that they're restoring streams and wetlands up in the northern part of Scott County, that they're going to take some of this money, but not this money, but money from other projects across the state, and they will use to restore these streams and do studies on it and look at the biology and study all that. So that's what they're doing now.
What does the WMA stand for? What are those issues?
Wildlife Management Area.
Okay.
I'm sorry, yeah.
Well, I just have another question. The Graves, how many years has that been in your family?
Oh, gosh, not talking to my mom about this.
Since 1780, so, yeah. It was
So-
long time,
5, 6
yeah.
Is there anything that can be done to help help them with their,
Well, as a, Ben knows that my passion is watershed management planning. And from what I've seen and know from looking at the overall water, that Toyota is probably not their biggest contributing factor in this area. That it's probably the upstream watershed and it all coming together. I'm sure having that confluence there causes additional flooding in that area, especially during large events. From the Toyota side, we've tried to, like I mentioned, we've increased the basin sizes, even though I probably could have submitted modeling that Ben couldn't have told me was incorrect, and not done any of those basin modifications. But we knew that, knowing the history of dry run and how much it's been studied, we thought that having that point on the site is a more conservative approach to try to make sure that we didn't have any downstream impacts from this project.
so beyond Toyota then, so Ben, is there, this is a community question.
Oh, yeah.
Is there,
Watershed management.
is there something that this community should be doing to help that situation with that area? Is there something that we can do as a community? I'm just curious.
I mean, it would be a way above and beyond anything that would be done anywhere else. I don't know. That is in a floodplain, flood zone area. So, I can't think of anything that, like anything simple that could be done. That area's gonna flood. There's a whole lot of industrial, and that's one of the reasons we studied this, because it was partially developed watershed, and there was a whole other part of the watershed that we anticipated growth was going in the next 20, 30 years. That's why it was studied. So can we take a look at this whole thing? And recommendations and requirements were put in place that we look at this, and as the area's developed, we study with a model. So we have a full model to study and to look at future increases to relieve any future damage, but what is going through there now is natural drainage. Probably increased by Triport Road area and all that. It was industrialized years ago.
If you go up to Triport and go back in the back there, dry run, I mean, you can step across it. It's not any wider than this right here. And it just, the watershed in a short amount of time increases quite a bit. You've got all that runoff from Triport Road to the industrial area there, so.
And it's
that's
also,
all running down there.
it's also very unfortunate about the credits that get applied to other places. But this is out of your control, out of everyone's control. I get that. It's very unfortunate.
We're also getting,
And we're getting some
we're getting
regrets.
credits from other places too, though, at the same time.
It would be nice if we make, in the ideal world, that wherever these places, things occur, that those improvements were made within existing areas wouldn't happen. That's all I'm saying. But thank you all.
The one thing that is good about the credit program is that the reason they stopped doing the on-site mitigation is because they felt like they were spending a lot of money on areas that weren't necessarily seeing a lot of improvement. So they know they do spend a lot of time in analyzing streams where they feel like they can
make a difference.
to make a significant improvement. It may not be the exact area where the impact was, but it's still improving water quality and habitat for the environment at a substantial level. Because I know I have done that kind of work, and if the conductivity in the existing water is too high to start with, the project gets killed.
And Toyota does not get credit for these large basins that are wetlands in themselves. I mean, they didn't give you any credit for the creation of those.
They don't get any credit for the area that we're creating as a part of this. That's going to be providing that additional water quality. They don't count any of that.
But it is a very healthy wetland out there that the large basin that they zoom in just a little bit.
Yeah, that one.
Yes, that whole area down there, that was not there 40 years ago. I mean,
Yeah, this other one down, you go to the bigger one. So this side is drained to 2. So this large one here you can see really well. We call this basin 4. And then if you flip back one, please. Let me make sure So this, we call this basin 7. So that basin's only about 10 years old, and it's really turned into actually what most people would consider a pretty nice wetland these days on its own.
But I was just gonna say, nothing to do with what you're doing here with Toyota, but to the Singer family, the Graves family. You know, as a community, you know, maybe we need to look at other areas to help these water issues on your property. But anyway, I don't want us to ignore the historic significance of those two properties. But I do not, based on what we have been through 2 meetings, I don't think this is a Toyota situation.
All right, any other questions, comments? All right, seeing none, I will take a motion.
I make a motion to pass, see that, is it, can't read my,
PDP 2025.
-12.
Yep. I have a motion.
I'll second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Mr. Stone?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Ms. Adair?
Yes.
Mr. Jesse?
Yes.
Ms. Canfield?
Yes.
Mr. Mifflin, the chair votes yes also. 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, if you will see Mr. Perkins here. Holden, do you have anything else for the commission this evening?
No, I had nothing to write.
So just a couple quick items. The first is a housekeeping one. Tracy Hoffman had sent over a form that we're hoping to get everyone to sign off of on tonight, and as the rest of the commissioners, we'll get them to sign off as well. This is special meetings, request for electronic notice. Again, this is just a housekeeping thing. I'll get this to you guys. The more exciting one is I'm looking at 2 commissioners here who were able to attend our community housing forum last night. I think that was a great success. Not so much because of anything in particular that we as staff were able to communicate to the public, but rather instead that we provided an avenue for the community to have this conversation. My office continues to do a lot of outreach. On Monday, we're heading back out to the schools. We've got a walkability project we're doing with them. And we continue to look for more opportunities to do community outreach. And it's currently staff's intent to actually apply to present at the fall Kentucky APA conference to kind of summarize the outreach work that our office has been doing. And we're looking forward to, again, communicating all the great work that we've done.
Cool.
The only other thing that I would just like to kind of provide a heads up for is on July 1st, a new Kentucky statute will go into effect that will begin to change how staff reviews and how the Planning Commission reviews preliminary development plans, subdivisions, and items of that note. And so we're currently working through our list of ordinances to make sure that ministerial decisions can be made. And so just anticipate more information on that moving forward. And that's all I have for tonight.
I do have one question for you.
Mm-hmm.
I call it the asphalt mountain.
Okay, yes.
I want to make sure that we do look at that. I'd like to have a formal, that they're in compliance.
Okay, I can do that.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
And I talked with Holden earlier tonight. I would like for us to follow up from that housing forum last night and sit down, have a workshop amongst us to talk about housing, what we can and can't do. And then he suggested taking it a step further and inviting the city council, because several items were brought up last night that our hands are tied on. It's, we just not approved something that the city is implemented with their regulations. So we need to talk with them to maybe start adjusting those so that we can get different types of housing in different areas.
Great idea.
So hopefully we'll be able to sit down, and I am the only one without a job, not working, so I can meet anytime. You all need to talk with Holden and decide whether you'd want to do it on a Saturday morning or a nighttime meeting or lunch, or we don't need the attorney there anyway there. So.
Holden could come out while I'm baling hay and we could talk
There
while
you
we're
go.
stacking hay.
While you drive.
Hey, you let me ride the tractor, okay? No, you're throwing,
What'd you say, Holden? Speed up.
speed up too.
If there's nothing else, consider us adjourned. Thank you.
How was the